or maybe he came to his senses, where Deion Sanders said, okay, my son can be drafted by anybody. Until that point, during key evaluation months, go to the Super Bowl, look it up. I went this morning and looked at clips, found 4 different shows of Deion Sanders with arrogance, hubris, confidence, saying, hey, he wasn't directing that at well-run teams with star quarterbacks. He was specifically directing that at these 7 or 8 teams. And that's about the only teams that need a quarterback. 7 or 8 teams that needed a quarterback, many of them struggling franchises.
Colin Cowherd has come after Deion Sanders once again, accusing him of being the reason Shadur Sanders is suffering even after the draft. According to Cowherd, there was no shock in Shadur falling so much in the draft. He claims that Deion's attitude and decision-making played a significant role in his son's draft position. Cowherd argues that Deion didn't give the green light to several teams early on, being overly choosy about the opportunities for Shadur. As a result, when some of those teams overlooked him in their draft process, the fallout was inevitable. Cowherd says it's Deion's hubris that ultimately led to Shadur's fall in the draft.
A couple teams that I won't allow him to play for.
Whoa.
This is my profession. I know what's behind the curtain. We ain't got to get back there for me to understand what's not prominent for my son. I'm not doing it.
And if he doesn't listen to you?
Who? No, you must mean owners, like not my son.
Have you told him privately who you would like for him to play for?
It's not like who I would like for him to play for. It's
Colin's point holds weight, especially considering that in several interviews, Deion Sanders openly stated that Shadur should not play for certain teams. While he never mentioned those teams by name, his comments had a ripple effect throughout the league. By putting those restrictions on where Shadur could go, it undoubtedly impacted the perception of his draft stock. Teams that might have considered him more seriously were likely deterred. And that hesitation eventually led to the downfall in Shadur's draft position. Deion's strong stance, while perhaps well-intentioned, seems to have unintentionally set the stage for his son's drop in the draft. Shadur Sanders was visibly devastated after not hearing his name called in the first 2 rounds of the draft. Cameras caught the emotion on his face, and while he tried to maintain composure, it was clear the fall was weighing heavily on him. But according to multiple reports, the slide wasn't about Shadur's talent, it was about his father.
We all didn't expect this, of course, but I feel like with God, anything possible, everything possible. I don't feel like this happened, for no reason. All this is, of course, fuel to the fire. And under no circumstance, we all know this shouldn't have happened. But we understand we're on the bigger and better things. Tomorrow's the day. We're going to be happy regardless.
NFL insiders suggested that teams weren't hesitating because of the quarterback's ability, but because of the potential baggage that came with Deion Sanders' outspoken approach. His larger-than-life personality, combined with his bold comments and controversial decisions, created a cloud of uncertainty for teams. They feared that bringing Shadur on board might come with unnecessary drama or distractions, something that could affect team chemistry and focus. Despite Shadur's clear potential, it was the shadow of his father that seemed to play a major role in his fall. Colin mentioned that despite Shadur Sanders not even being the highest-ranked QB of the class, Deion marketed him as if he were the next great quarterback. This overhyped image set unrealistic expectations for a player who, while talented, wasn't necessarily seen as the top prospect by scouts. Some even argue that Shadur was ranked lower than quarterbacks like Cam Ward and Jackson Dart, who didn't carry the same level of attention or drama. While those quarterbacks quietly went about their business, Shadur's situation was amplified by his father's outspoken nature. According to Colin, there was simply no need for the extra drama surrounding Shadur's draft process.
As a prospect is below, and many people believe far below, Cam Ward. Many believe he's also behind Jackson Dart, the Giants did. Whether you agree with that or not, this is not a John Elway. This is not an Andrew Luck. This is not even a Caleb Williams prospect, where you're going to overlook some stuff.
Analysts and insiders alike questioned why Deion felt the need to control the narrative so tightly, especially when it came to teams like the Cleveland Browns, the very organization Shadur ultimately joined. The overmanagement of his son's journey raised eyebrows, particularly in an environment where many felt Shadur should be able to chart his own course. Sports analyst Colin Cowherd didn't mince words either. He directly pointed to Deion as the reason Shadur wasn't picked in the first 4 rounds. Cowherd went as far as calling Deion greedy and accused him of trying to cash in on his son. He criticized the Hall of Famer for not stepping back and allowing Shadur to carve out his own path in the NFL. On the other hand, in a passionate statement, Coach Prime called out the critics, vehemently defending his son. Deion argued that the attacks on Shadur weren't based on anything he did wrong, but simply because he's Deion Sanders' son. According to Deion, Shadur has done everything right. He's put in the work, performed on the field, and earned his place. Yet the hate keeps coming from those who never gave him a fair shot. Deion made it clear that this situation goes beyond football, saying it's personal and it's wrong. He believes that Shedur's struggles in the draft were rooted in bias and prejudice, not in his abilities.
I know there was a lot of rumors about the next level, and I can't see that. I can't see the next level. And I think a couple people who may have taken shots at my kids, they were afraid that I would go. That's where the shots came from. All you got to do is just sit back and listen. People don't want to do that. They want to create these narratives and create these stories and then attach them to a kid that ain't never done nothing wrong.
Deion remained confident that those same critics would eventually change their stance once things started to fall into place for Shadur. As the praises began to roll in and the very same critics started to soften their tone, Deion finally broke his silence. But this time, he wasn't just defending his son, he was calling people out. Deion questioned the intent behind the smear campaign, asking how anyone could look at Shedur's relentless work ethic, leadership, and consistent production on the field and still claim he wasn't prepared for the NFL.
You've always been in front of the camera, so they know how to navigate, they know how to handle themselves. Yeah. And you're not gonna catch them in no foolery and no mess. You're not, when you sit up there and say something like, he went in a meeting unprepared, like, dude, Shedeur Sanders, who's had 6 different coordinators, who has still functioned and went up, leveled up every time we brought somebody new in, and you're gonna tell me he was
every situation.
You're gonna tell me he had on headphones?
He made it clear. Shadur did everything right. He trained tirelessly, studied the game, and delivered when it mattered most. And yet, despite all of that, some still tried to belittle him, not because of what he lacked, but simply because of who he was. Deion's message was simple but powerful. Shadur wasn't judged on his ability, but on the perception of his last name. And now, as Shedur's performances continue to silence the doubters, the myths about his off-the-field behavior are crumbling too. For months, critics painted him as arrogant, entitled, and difficult in the locker room. But that image couldn't have been further from the truth. In a recent interview, Shadur addressed it all head-on, calmly and confidently. He made it clear he was never the problematic guy. He spoke with humility, carried himself with respect, and let his actions speak louder than the noise. Shedur's demeanor spoke volumes about who he truly was, and in his interview, he made sure to set the record straight.
Working on is like understand, like, you know, I work hard.
Yep.
And I love the game of football. That's all you really need to know. And you know, I ain't disrespectful. I don't have off the field problems. So those main 3 things is that equals success.